Marlene Dawson was such a good cook that, after I hired her, I could barely remember the last time I had ordered food for delivery. She could turn leftover Thanksgiving turkey into a pot pie fragrant with butter and sage. Her clam chowder was thick, without becoming the bowl of white cream served in so many tourist restaurants around Portland. Even meatloaf, a dish I had hated since school, came out of her oven tender and savory, with a caramelized tomato glaze that made me willing to eat it 2 nights in a row. So when Marlene told me on Friday evening that she would make brown butter cinnamon rolls with maple syrup the next morning, I actually set my alarm earlier than usual. I lived alone, but Marlene worked at my house 4 days a week and often ate breakfast or lunch with me. Normally, whatever she cooked was what I ate. I was never demanding about menus, and I certainly did not begrudge her the cost of ingredients. The only thing I had to mention again and again was that Marlene seemed incapable of understanding what a two-person portion looked like. During the first few weeks, she cooked the right amount. Then 2 salmon fillets became 4. A small pot of chili became a Dutch oven, filled nearly to the rim. 6 biscuits became 18. Every time I asked about it, Marlene admitted fault immediately. Old habit, Miss Natalie. The family I used to work for had a full house. I forgot you live alone. I'll pay closer attention next time, but at the next meal, there would be even more food than before. I did not care about an extra pound or 2 of flour or another package of meat. I simply hated watching food disappear into the back of the refrigerator until it had to be thrown away. Marlene always nodded and always promised, but her promises seemed to expire the moment she made her next grocery run. That Saturday morning, I had barely reached the bottom of the stairs when the smell of cinnamon, brown butter, and maple sugar filled the entire first floor. My mood improved at once. Outside the windows, Portland was washed in pale gray light, and wet red-orange maple leaves covered the walkway. The kitchen was warm from the oven. Marlene stood at the island in the white apron I had given her for Christmas, spooning cream cheese frosting over fresh rolls. Her cinnamon rolls looked like something from an advertisement. The crusts were golden, the soft coils of dough clearly layered, and the dark cinnamon filling still bubbled at the edges. White frosting melted down the curves and mixed with maple syrup into a glossy, fragrant glaze. I pulled out a stool. The smell alone woke me up. Marlene smiled. I told you that you wouldn't be disappointed. Then I looked across the entire counter. The smile slowly left my face. There was not one tray of cinnamon rolls on the island. There were 4 large trays. I counted twice. 48 cinnamon rolls, each nearly the size of my palm. Even a hearty eater could manage only 2. No matter how hard Marlene and I tried, we could not finish enough rolls to feed a parent-teacher meeting. Marlene, I said, keeping my voice light, did you really make 48? She kept happily scattering pecans over the last tray. Yeast dough is only worth the trouble when you make a large batch. But there are only 2 of us. You can eat them during the week. The freezer still has last week's blueberry muffins and half a pan of lasagna. They'll keep. I sighed, poured myself coffee, and took 1 roll. It was soft and hot, the center sticky and sweet. 1 bite reminded me exactly why I had always found it so easy to overlook Marlene's excesses. I had nearly finished before I said, "Next time, please make fewer." 12 would be more than enough. This many will go to waste. It was the same mild reminder I had given her before. I did not raise my voice. I did not criticize her cooking. Yet the spoon in Marlene's hand suddenly stopped. Her smile disappeared. She set the spoon down, turned toward me, and her eyes reddened so quickly that I did not understand what was happening. "I'm sorry, Miss Natalie. Marlene, I know that nothing I do is good enough for you." She pulled the dish towel from her shoulder and clasped both hands tightly over her stomach. Her voice trembled. My former employers had 6 children. I cooked large quantities for more than 20 years. I'm old, and my memory isn't what it used to be. You already reminded me, and I still forgot. It is my fault. Marlene, no one said that nothing you do is good enough. I won't make you throw them away. She bent down and pulled a black insulated bag from the cabinet beneath the island. Before I could react, she took out a stack of glass containers with lids. They were not mine. They were containers she had brought from home. She opened the first one and began filling it. 4 rolls, 8, 12. I sat with my fork still in my hand, watching her transfer the warm rolls from the trays into boxes with practiced speed. Marlene, what are you doing? I'll take them home to eat, then they won't be wasted. She closed the first box and opened another. 16, 20, 24. She showed no sign of stopping. I began to feel uneasy, not because she wanted to take a few rolls home. If Marlene had asked, I probably would have given her an entire tray. What bothered me was the way she acted as though every extra roll automatically belonged to her. She had brought containers. She had brought an insulated bag. She had apparently been waiting for me to confirm that I could not eat them all. Only when about 10 rolls remained did Marlene turn and ask, "How many would you like to keep?" I thought I had misheard her. "You're asking how many I would like to keep? You already ate one. I can leave you 2 more. 3 might be too much sugar for your health." She reached toward the roll on my plate as if she intended to pack up the unfinished portion too. I stopped her hand. "Leave 12. Marlene froze. 12? Yes. My parents have their book club meeting this afternoon. I'll bring them 10 and keep 2 here. She looked at me as though I were the one making an unreasonable demand. Isn't 12 a little much? Your parents are older. These have a lot of sugar and butter. Waste is not good either. I put down my fork. The flour, butter, cream cheese, pecans, and maple syrup were bought with my card. Marlene pressed her lips together. Yes, I pay for the electricity, the gas, and this kitchen. I know, and you made these during hours for which I pay you. Her face hardened. I have never counted every minute with you. And I have never counted every pound of flour with you. But you just asked how many rolls I wanted to keep when they were made in my house with my ingredients. I only wanted to prevent waste. If you truly want to prevent waste, do not make 48 next time. The kitchen went silent. The heating system beneath the floor suddenly sounded very loud. Marlene stared at me for several seconds and then turned away. She took 12 rolls out of her containers and put them back on the tray. Her movements were no longer gentle. Frosting stuck to one lid, and she did not bother fixing it. I understand, she said. Her voice no longer trembled. I'll remember which part belongs to you. It sounded like an accusation. I looked at the 4 trays, the containers she had brought, and the insulated bag large enough to carry almost everything out of the house. For the first time, I wondered how often Marlene had done this. I had hired her 11 months earlier after breaking my right wrist at an exhibition installation site in Portsmouth. For the first 8 weeks, I could barely button a shirt, much less cook, change sheets, or carry laundry down to the basement. My best friend, Priya Shah, had recommended Marlene. She had more than 20 years of experience, 3 written references, and such a professional manner that during the first interview she asked about my allergies, which cleaning products I preferred, and whether I wanted towels changed once or twice a week. I paid her $32 an hour, plus groceries and mileage. Even after my wrist healed, I kept her, because my work often took me to Boston or Portsmouth, and Marlene cooked beautifully, cleaned thoroughly, and remembered details I routinely forgot. She knew I did not drink coffee after 3 in the afternoon. She knew I hated the smell of bleach. She knew my father had bad knees, and my mother preferred Earl Grey tea. At Christmas, I gave her a bonus equal to 2 weeks' pay and a navy cashmere scarf. She hugged me, cried, and said no employer had ever treated her so well. That was why, after the argument about the cinnamon rolls, I still tried to persuade myself that it was only a difference in habit. Maybe Marlene truly was used to cooking for a large family. Maybe she took leftovers to neighbors or church. Maybe I was overreacting to one awkward remark. I ate a second roll, packed 10 for my parents, and went upstairs to change. When I came back down, Marlene had zipped the insulated bag closed. The remaining 36 rolls were inside it. "You're taking all of them?" I asked. "You kept your share." I looked at her. She looked back with such calm certainty that the words sounded like an indisputable fact. I could have told her to leave everything. I did not. I did not want to turn a Saturday morning into a tug of war over a few trays of pastries. I even told myself that keeping Marlene was more important than winning a small argument. Before leaving, she said only, "On Monday, I'll cook exactly 2 portions." The back door closed behind her. That evening, I ate a very light dinner. I have an odd habit. On nights when I eat little, I enjoy watching other people eat. Priya often teased me for torturing myself with mukbang videos, but that night she was the one who sent me a link. Her message contained only one sentence. "Natalie, look at the plate behind this guy." I opened the video. A dark blonde man with a neatly trimmed beard sat before a table piled with cinnamon rolls. He wore a red hoodie printed with the words, "Tyler's Table." The title of the live stream read, 36 Maple Cinnamon Rolls in 30 Minutes. My mom's secret recipe. I stared at the number 36. Exactly the number Marlene had taken from my house. Behind the man was the blue glazed ceramic platter I had bought in Vermont. Beside it lay a napkin embroidered with the initials NM, my initials. The man picked up a roll and squeezed it lightly so the frosting ran down the side. French butter, Madagascar vanilla, premium maple syrup. At Tyler's Table, we don't use cheap ingredients. Viewers sent hearts and donations. One comment asked why the photo posted that morning showed 48 rolls, while only 36 were on the table. Tyler laughed. 2 greedy old people took a dozen. From behind the camera, Marlene's voice came through clearly. "Don't mention them. They did none of the work and still took the best part." Tyler laughed harder. "Exactly. Some people are already rich and still love taking what belongs to someone else." I did not hear what he said after that. I could only look at the rolls. My parents had not even been at my house that morning. I had asked to keep 10 pastries for them, purchased with my own money, yet in the story Marlene and her son told, my parents had become greedy old people who stole Tyler's food. I replayed the clip. Marlene did not merely know about the live stream, she was standing behind the camera. I clicked on the channel page, Tyler Dawson. Marlene's 32-year-old son, whom she often described as a gifted chef waiting for his opportunity. The channel had more than 80,000 followers. Its latest video used my pastries, my platter, my napkin, and very possibly my kitchen. Priya called the moment she saw that I had read her message. "You recognized everything, didn't you?" I did. "She said she was taking the rolls to church, right?" "Not today. Today she only said she was taking them home so they wouldn't be wasted." "What are you going to do?" I watched Tyler bite into his 3rd roll while the chat praised his mother for being generous and talented. "I want to know how long this has been happening." That night, I did not sleep. I watched every video on Tyler's Table. There were 147. Tyler did more than eating challenges. He filmed family dinners, secret recipes, New England comfort food, and live streams that lasted for hours, while he ate huge quantities and talked about his life. I recognized my kitchen in the 3rd video I opened. Not the entire room. Only a stretch of white tile and the walnut shelf where I kept sea salt. But it was my kitchen. The video had been filmed in January, while I was in Boston for 3 days. Tyler stood beside my island and said, "We're in a private studio in Portland. This space is sponsored by a family friend." A family friend. I opened the next video. Beef stew in my red Dutch oven. Another. Blueberry cobbler in the ceramic dish my mother had given me for my birthday. Another. Lobster macaroni and cheese packed into the 6 glass containers that had supposedly cracked from the heat. I began taking notes. Upload date, dish, equipment visible, dates when I was away. By 3 in the morning, I had a spreadsheet listing 42 videos that clearly used food or equipment from my house. Several had been filmed in the kitchen itself. Marlene had not merely carried food away. She had brought Tyler into my house while I was gone. I checked the smart lock history for the back door. The system retained 6 months of data. Marlene's code appeared repeatedly outside her work hours, especially on Sunday and Monday evenings, when she knew I was often at installation sites. Once, the door had opened at 11:47 p.m. and closed at 2 in the morning. I sat before the computer, cold even though the heat was on. At 6, Priya texted, "Are you still awake?" I replied, "They filmed inside my house." 10 minutes later, she arrived with 2 coffees and a bag of bagels. Priya was not the kind of friend who said only, "Calm down." She read my spreadsheet, checked the videos, and asked the first useful question. "Do you have a written employment agreement?" "Yes." "What does it say about taking food away?" "Nothing specific, but anything purchased with my card belongs to me." "Access outside work hours?" "Only when requested." "Cameras?" "Front door, back door, and hallway. None in the kitchen." Priya nodded. "Good. Don't confront her yet." "Why not?" "Because if you do, they'll delete the videos, claim everything was a gift, and say you allowed them to use the kitchen." "But the lock records show that they entered. They do not prove you never gave permission." I pushed the laptop toward her. "Read the comments under the cinnamon roll video." Priya read them, and her expression darkened. "Bastards. I want to fire her today." "I understand." "No, you don't. I gave her a Christmas bonus. I paid part of her dental bill when she said her coverage was not enough. I lent Tyler my old camera because Marlene told me his phone was broken." Priya looked up. "You gave him a camera? I didn't know it was for this." "Marlene said her son needed it to film a job application." Priya closed the laptop. "Natalie, listen to me. You have every right to be furious, but you need to decide what you want. Do you only want to fire her, recover money, stop them from inventing stories about you, or prove that they used this kitchen for commercial activity without permission? I want them to be unable to say I imagined all of it. Then you need evidence they cannot talk their way around." I looked out the window. Portland was beginning to wake, its rain-darkened roofs reflecting the pale morning. "How? First, we calculate the damage. Then you change the rules in writing. If they continue, they will choose to cross a clearly marked line. I don't want to entrap anyone. No, you put up a door with a sign that says, 'Do not enter.' If they open it anyway, that is their choice." I remained silent. Priya added, "And you need a lawyer." I hate that sentence. Everyone does until they need one. I called Daniel Cho at 9 that morning. Daniel had handled contracts for one of my museum projects. He listened without interrupting, asking only for dates and estimated values. "Do not post anything online," he said. "Do not threaten them. Do not touch their accounts. Save every public video, receipt, and access log. And do not place cameras anywhere a person would reasonably expect privacy, such as a bathroom or bedroom." "Can I put one in the kitchen?" "It is your home." The safest approach is to give written notice that the kitchen and entrances are under video surveillance for security and inventory management. Video only, no hidden audio. I have to tell her? If your purpose is to protect yourself rather than play detective, yes. I looked at Priya. She shrugged as if to say good. Daniel continued. "You also need a clear written policy. No food, utensils, equipment, or other property may leave the house without permission by text or in writing. Have her sign an acknowledgement. If she takes something after that, the facts become much simpler." "What about the old videos?" "You may have civil claims, but first we need to know the value and scope. Do you want the police involved now?" I thought of Marlene crying beneath my Christmas tree. "Not yet. Then preserve the evidence." "And Natalie?" "Yes. Do not assume they will respond reasonably when discovered. People who have grown accustomed to crossing boundaries often experience a new boundary as a personal attack." I remembered that sentence for a long time. Over the next week, Priya and I turned my kitchen into an audit room. We searched electronic receipts from Whole Foods, Hannaford, Costco, and Harbor Fish Market. I compared grocery dates with Tyler's upload schedule. 12 pounds of beef purchased on February 8th. On February 9th, Tyler posted giant beef stew for a snow day. 3 large lobsters purchased on March 17th. On March 18th, he live-streamed the $200 lobster roll. 2 blocks of Vermont cheddar disappeared at the beginning of April. On April 3rd, he uploaded triple cheese mac and cheese. The more we checked, the clearer the pattern became. Marlene bought ingredients with the secondary card I had given her. She cooked during paid hours. A small portion stayed with me. Most of the food was taken to Tyler or used for filming in my house. The dishes on his channel were almost always more expensive than an ordinary dinner. Prime rib, lobster, scallops, pure vanilla, premium maple syrup, imported chocolate. During those 11 months, my grocery spending exceeded any reasonable estimate of my own consumption by almost $9,000. That did not include electricity, gas, missing equipment, or the wages I had paid while Marlene produced food for her son. Priya sat across from me at the dining table, tapping her pen against the laptop. You paid her to create content for Tyler. I know. No, I need you to hear it clearly. This was not a housekeeper taking home leftovers. This was a business operation. I looked at the numbers. Numbers made everything less ambiguous. If Marlene had taken 1 container of soup because her son was hungry, I could have been angry and still understood. If she had occasionally carried home leftovers without asking, I could have drawn a new boundary. But this had gone on for almost a year. Tyler called the dishes exclusive recipes. He received donations, advertised cookware, and sold $15 monthly memberships that gave viewers access to full recipes. I was financing a business that did not belong to me. The following Monday, I gave Marlene a new written policy. She stood by the counter and read every line. Cameras in the kitchen? She asked. Video only, no audio. 1 faces the back entrance, and 1 faces the storage area. You don't trust me? Things have gone missing. You think I took them? The policy applies to everyone with access to the house, including contractors and the landscaper. Marlene put the paper down. I have worked for you almost a year. I know. You have never complained before. I looked directly at her. Have you ever taken food out of this house without asking? Something passed across Marlene's face. It was not quite fear. It looked more like outrage that I had forced her to answer a question she believed I had no right to ask. I only took leftovers. How many times? I don't remember. Have you ever brought Tyler into this house while I was away? Marlene pressed her lips together. He helped me carry heavy things. After 11 at night? She looked at the new camera in the corner. You've been tracking me? I reviewed the access history for my own door. She said nothing. I pushed the policy closer. The rule is simple. No food, utensils, equipment, or any other property leaves the house without written permission. No one but you may enter unless I approve it beforehand. The kitchen and entrances are under video surveillance. You may read this carefully, take it to a lawyer, or refuse to sign. What happens if I refuse? We end the employment relationship, and I pay you in full for all work completed through today. Marlene stared at me for a long time. Then she picked up the pen. You've changed, she said. I did not answer. She signed. The pressure of her pen tore the paper slightly. That afternoon, she cooked exactly 2 servings of shepherd's pie. Nothing left the house. The next day was the same. On the 3rd day, she arrived 20 minutes late without explanation. She no longer spoke about Tyler. She did not ask about my parents. She did not leave small notes on the refrigerator. The house was cleaner than ever, but the atmosphere felt cold. I began wondering whether I should stop there. Maybe knowing that I was suspicious would be enough. Maybe I could end the contract, demand partial repayment, and avoid turning everything into a war. Then, on Thursday evening, Tyler posted a promotional clip. This weekend, he said into the camera, Tyler's Table is launching an all-new Maine Coast meal box. lobster hand pies, blueberry buckle, cheddar biscuits, and maple mustard sauce. Every recipe was developed by me in a professional studio. Our sponsor, Granite Flame Cookware, will be watching the live stream. I watched the clip twice. That weekend, Priya had a tasting order for the opening of my museum exhibition. The menu included lobster hand pies, blueberry buckle, cheddar biscuits, and maple mustard sauce. It was not a coincidence. It could not be. I called Priya. After listening, she said only, "So they haven't stopped." The exhibition I was designing was called A Light Through the Fog. It told the stories of maritime families along the Maine coast over more than a century. The opening would be held at Harbor Light Museum, an old brick building overlooking the port. The guest list included sponsors, local historians, fishing families, and several journalists. Priya was providing food for the pre-opening tasting. She had developed the menu 2 months earlier. The lobster hand pies used an all-butter crust with Maine lobster, leeks, cream, and tarragon. The blueberry buckle was made with wild berries. The cheddar biscuits used cheese from a Vermont farm. The maple mustard sauce went into small labeled jars. Tyler announced those exact 4 items. I asked Priya, who knew the menu besides us? My staff, the museum director, and Marlene. Marlene, you put the event schedule on your refrigerator. The menu was attached. I remembered. I had printed the calendar so Marlene would know which days I planned to leave early or return late. Priya folded her arms. She could have photographed it or overheard a phone call. Tyler plans to use my menu to secure a sponsorship. We still cannot prove he took the recipes, but we can create unmistakable proof if they take the food. I looked at her. Priya immediately shook her head. Not poison, not anything filthy. We do this properly, she explained her plan. On Friday, Juniper and Rye would prepare 60 tasting samples. One refrigerator compartment at the bakery was being repaired, and my house was only 10 minutes from the museum, so part of the order would be stored overnight in my auxiliary kitchen refrigerator. Every tray would have a tamper-evident seal, batch number, and label, property of Harbor Light Museum, event tasting samples, not for sale or use. Beneath the liner in every box would be the museum's blue logo and Juniper and Rye's phone number. More importantly, Priya would add a detail Tyler could not anticipate. Each lobster hand pie would be stamped underneath with a tiny lighthouse, using a custom mold made for the museum. The blueberry buckle would have powdered sugar stenciled into an H on top. If Tyler took the food and showed it on camera, the identifying marks would appear. I don't like how this feels, I said. What part? Waiting for someone to make a mistake. You clearly told her not to take anything. She signed. The food will be labeled. If she leaves it alone, nothing happens. Should I fire her before Friday? That is your decision. I looked toward the window. Drizzle fell through the maple branches. I thought about the previous 11 months. Marlene setting pain medication beside my bed while my wrist was still in a cast. The chicken soup she made when I had the flu. The afternoon she sat beside me in a hospital waiting room while my father underwent a colonoscopy. Those acts of kindness had been real. They did not erase what she had done behind my back. I decided to keep her scheduled through Friday. That morning, Priya and 2 employees delivered the food at 7. We counted everything in front of the camera. 24 lobster hand pies, 24 pieces of blueberry buckle, 24 cheddar biscuits, 12 jars of sauce. Half went directly to the museum. Half remained in the auxiliary refrigerator for pickup the next morning. I called Marlene into the kitchen. This is client property, I said. It has been counted and sealed. Do not open it, move it, or use it. The museum will collect it at 7 tomorrow morning. She looked at the trays. They take up the entire refrigerator. For one night. What if the power goes out? The backup generator will start. You keep repeating yourself because you don't trust me? I am making sure there is no misunderstanding. Marlene gave a thin smile. There is no misunderstanding here. She turned away. I left for the museum at 9. Before driving off, I checked the cameras. Everything was working. At 11:13, Marlene opened the auxiliary refrigerator. She stood in front of the trays for almost a minute. Then she closed the door. At 12:40, she opened it again. This time, she photographed the labels with her phone. At 1:15, she called someone. The camera had no audio, but I saw her speaking quickly and pointing toward the refrigerator. At 2:20, she took the black insulated bag from her trunk. She cut the seal on a tray of lobster hand pies. I was at the museum when the motion alert arrived. I opened the camera feed and watched. Marlene took 12 hand pies, 12 pieces of blueberry buckle, 12 biscuits, and 6 jars of sauce. She packed all of it into the bag. Then she did something that made it clear this was not an impulsive choice. From a drawer, she removed a roll of tamper-evident tape identical to the tape Priya had used. She had bought it in advance. She resealed the trays, trying to make them appear untouched. Then she cut several remaining pieces in half and spread them across the trays so the quantity still looked generous. I stared at the screen, my hands cold. Marlene had signed the policy. She had read the labels. She knew about the cameras. And she took the food anyway. It was not a misunderstanding. It was not food about to spoil. She believed she had the right to do it, and she believed I was too soft to stop her. I called Daniel. She just took the order. Do you have video? Yes. Do not call her yet. Make sure a copy is saved outside the home system. I want it back before Tyler eats it. Daniel paused. You can report the missing property to the police, but if you want to establish where it went, let the door camera record the vehicle and departure time. Do not follow them. Do not confront them alone. I looked at the clock. Tyler's live stream began at 6. I know exactly where the food is going to appear. At 5:50, Priya arrived at my house with a laptop, a folder of documents, and the expression of someone about to watch a man set fire to the bridge beneath his own feet. Daniel joined by video call. We sat at the dining table with Tyler's table displayed on the large screen. A countdown ran before the live stream. Granite Flame Cookware sponsored the event. Its logo appeared in the corner. Tyler had decorated the table with pine branches, red plaid cloth, and a wooden sign reading, Maine Coast Feast. At 6, he appeared. Welcome, Tyler's Table family. More than 3,000 people were watching. Tyler wore a black and blue flannel shirt, his hair neatly styled. Marlene stood behind him in a white apron. My mother and I have spent weeks developing this menu, he said. Everything was made from scratch in our private test kitchen. Priya clenched her jaw. Tyler opened the first box. 12 lobster hand pies lay inside. A comment flashed. That looks so professional. Tyler smiled. Of course. We are negotiating to launch a meal delivery service. This is your chance to see it first. He picked up one pie and turned it in his hand. The lighthouse stamp on the bottom passed the camera for less than a second, but it was enough. Priya took a screenshot. Got it. Tyler bit into the pie and closed his eyes as if tasting something divine. The lobster is perfectly balanced. Leeks, cream, a touch of tarragon. My recipe. My recipe, Priya said. Daniel spoke from the laptop. Do not comment, just record. Tyler moved to the blueberry buckle. The powdered sugar H was clearly visible. The chat began asking, what does the H stand for? Tyler looked down at the cake. H means home, because this tastes like home. Priya laughed, but there was no amusement in it. I watched Marlene. She stood behind her son, smiling with pride. Tyler continued, we use only local ingredients. Each box will retail for $99. Channel members will get priority. $99 for food they had taken from me. My anger rose, but it was no longer hot and chaotic like the night I found the cinnamon rolls online. It had become cold and precise. Daniel asked, Natalie, do you want to call now, or should I send a letter after the stream? I looked at the viewer count. 4,800. I'll call. Stay calm. Ask only factual questions. Do not threaten. I dialed Marlene. On screen, the phone in her apron pocket vibrated. She looked at Tyler. He shook his head. It continued ringing. The viewers could hear it. Tyler smiled at the camera. Sorry, everyone. Some people don't understand when we're working. I called a second time. Marlene pulled out the phone, saw my name, and stepped out of frame. Tyler kept eating. She answered. Hello? Marlene, where are you? I'm at home. Which home? She did not respond. I said, I am watching Tyler's live stream. On screen, Marlene turned toward her son. Her face went white. Tyler still did not understand. Marlene, did the 12 lobster hand pies on Tyler's table come from the Harbor Light Museum trays? She lowered her voice. What are you talking about? I have video of you cutting the seal, removing the food, and resealing the trays. Tyler stopped chewing. Perhaps he heard me through the phone, or read his mother's expression. He stood and moved away from the camera, but the live stream continued. Mom, turn off the phone. Marlene said to me, don't make this into something bigger than it is. They are only a few pastries. They belong to a client. You signed a policy saying you could not remove anything. I'll pay for them. You also took the blueberry buckle, biscuits, and sauce. You had more than you needed. Priya looked at me. The sentence had carried clearly through Marlene's phone and Tyler's live stream microphone. The chat began moving faster. Who is she talking to? Did they take someone else's food? Is this museum property? Tyler snatched the phone from his mother. Natalie, you are trying to ruin my live stream. Tyler, you are still broadcasting. He turned toward the screen. Panic crossed his face. He lunged for the controls, but hit the wrong button, switching the camera to a wide angle. The entire apartment appeared, including Marlene's black insulated bag and a bin filled with my glass containers. Viewers noticed. One comment read, "That is the NM napkin from the cinnamon roll video." Tyler finally found what he thought was the stop button, but Daniel said, "The stream is still live." He only turned off the preview. The audio continued. Tyler swore. Marlene said, "I told you to remove the labels." "I did remove them." "What about the marks under the pies? How was I supposed to know they were stamped?" Priya covered her mouth, not from shock, but to stop herself from laughing. Tyler continued, "You kept saying that kitchen was basically ours. Now she wants to act as if we stole something." I said nothing. Marlene answered, "She lives alone and buys more than she can use. What difference does it make if I take it?" More than 6,000 people heard her. Tyler discovered the live stream was still running almost a minute later. The screen went completely dark. My dining room fell silent. Priya looked at me. Daniel exhaled slowly. "All right," he said. "Now we have more than enough." 10 minutes after the live stream ended, my phone began vibrating without pause. Messages from colleagues. An email from the museum director. Notifications from social media accounts I barely used. A clipped recording had already been reposted. In it, Marlene said I lived alone and bought more than I could use. Tyler said my kitchen was basically ours. Priya took the phone out of my hand. Do not read the comments. What will the museum think? The museum has invoices, a contract with me, and batch numbers. They know whose food it was. I called the director, Mr. Ellis. He had watched the live stream after a younger employee sent him the link. "Do we still have enough tasting samples?" was his first question. "Yes," Priya answered beside me. "I prepared a backup tray at the bakery." Mr. Ellis sighed with relief. "Then the event is protected. As for the rest, Natalie, handle it through council. The museum will confirm the goods belong to us and were not authorized for removal." I thanked him. Granite Flame Cookware then emailed Tyler demanding an explanation. The company had received hundreds of messages from viewers. Daniel told me to forward every communication to him. "Do not respond publicly," he repeated. "We will issue a short statement containing only facts we can prove." At 7:15, Tyler called. I did not answer. He called again, then a third time. Messages appeared. You have to delete the camera video. I sue you for illegal recording. You set us up on purpose. My mother worked for you for almost a year. You owe her. A minute later. If I lose the sponsorship, you will pay for it. Priya read the messages. He genuinely believes you are responsible because he live-streamed stolen food. Daniel instructed me to save screenshots. At 8, Marlene left a voicemail. She was crying. Natalie, please. Tyler cannot survive this. You know how long he has worked for his chance. He could lose everything over a few pieces of food. I did it because I love my son. You don't have children, so you cannot understand. If you were ever a mother, you would know that a mother must do anything to help her child stand up. I listened twice. The words, "you don't have children," hurt in a way she could not have failed to understand. 3 years earlier, I had been pregnant. I lost the baby at 11 weeks. A few months later, my marriage ended. Not entirely because of the loss, but not separately from it either. Marlene knew. I had told her one day when she found a box of baby clothes in the storage room and asked whether I wanted them donated. She had held me while I cried. Now she used my childlessness to justify what she had done. I deleted the voicemail from the playback screen, though Daniel had already preserved a copy. Priya did not ask why I had gone quiet. She simply placed her hand over mine. Daniel said, "You do not need to decide anything tonight except how to keep yourself safe." We changed the backdoor code immediately. I called the security company and revoked every access credential issued to Marlene. Daniel drafted a termination notice effective at once, stating that she could retrieve personal belongings only through a scheduled supervised appointment. At 9:10, someone pounded on the front door. Not knocked, pounded. Tyler stood on the porch. The doorbell camera showed him in a hoodie, without a coat, though the night was cold. Marlene stood behind him, her eyes swollen. Tyler stared into the camera. "Natalie, open the door." I did not respond. He struck the door again. "We need to talk like adults." Priya called the police. Daniel remained on video. "Do not go to the door," he said. "Do not engage." Tyler pulled the handle. The door was locked. Marlene said something too quiet for the microphone. He turned and shouted at her, then pressed the bell again. "Natalie, you are destroying my mother's life." I watched on the screen. The woman who had once held a key to my house stood in the rain, no longer wearing her familiar gentle expression. She pointed toward the door, her face twisted with anger. "She owes us," Marlene said. "She cannot treat us like criminals." Tyler answered, "She is going to pay." The police arrived 8 minutes later. Tyler and Marlene started to leave before the patrol car had fully stopped. But the camera had recorded everything. The officer asked whether I wanted to make a formal report about the threats and attempted entry. I said yes. For the first time that night, I felt that I had truly severed something. Not an employment relationship. The belief that if I treated people well enough, they would automatically know where to stop. The next morning, Tyler posted a 17-minute video. The title was, "Cruel Millionaire Woman Sets Up a Struggling Single Mother." I was not a millionaire. My house was valuable because Portland real estate had appreciated, but I still made a mortgage payment every month. I worked an average of 50 hours a week. Some years were good. In others, I postponed repairs to the roof. But Cruel Millionaire was a more effective story than freelance museum designer discovers employee using her groceries. Tyler sat before the camera with red eyes and a strained voice. He said Marlene had devoted her life to caring for me. He claimed she regularly paid for groceries herself because I was stingy. He said I forced her to prepare luxurious meals while paying minimum wage. He accused me of deliberately leaving food in the refrigerator to tempt her into taking it so I could humiliate both of them in public. He omitted the signed policy. He omitted the museum labels. He omitted the fact that she had cut the seals and replaced them. Then he displayed a photograph of me drinking champagne at a fundraising event. While my mother worked herself to exhaustion, he said, this woman lived in luxury. The comments divided immediately. Some viewers had seen the live stream and did not believe him. Others saw only the new video and became furious. Hundreds of messages flooded my accounts. Childless witch. The rich always exploit workers. I hope the museum fires you. Someone posted my home address. That frightened me more than I expected. Daniel demanded that the platform remove the personal information and sent Tyler a preservation notice requiring him not to delete relevant evidence. He also contacted Granite Flame. The company suspended its partnership while it reviewed the matter, but did not yet announce a final decision. We have to respond, I said. Yes, Daniel replied, but not with an angry video, with documentation. Priya suggested releasing 3 things: a copy of the policy bearing Marlene's signature, photographs of the museum label and batch code, still images from the kitchen camera showing her cut the seal and carry the food away. Daniel added a limited comparison between several grocery receipts and Tyler's public videos, with private information removed. The statement itself was only 4 paragraphs. I did not call Marlene a thief. I did not mention what she had said about my parents. I did not reveal her private messages. I wrote, for several months, I discovered that food and equipment purchased through my accounts were being used for commercial content without my consent. After a written property policy was issued, tasting samples owned by Harbor Light Museum were still removed from my home, despite clear labels prohibiting use. I have terminated the employment relationship and referred the matter to counsel. I will not debate private lives on social media. Priya read it. That is painfully polite, Daniel said, which is why people will believe it. We posted at 2 in the afternoon. 30 minutes later, a former employee of Tyler emailed Priya. Her name was Hannah Lee. She had edited videos for him for 4 months before quitting because he failed to pay her in full. Hannah wrote, I can confirm that many videos were filmed in Miss Mercer's home while she was away. Tyler said his mother had permission to use the house. I also have messages in which he ordered me to remove logos from food containers and avoid filming windows so the location could not be identified. I read the email 3 times. Daniel contacted Hannah immediately. By evening, 2 more people had come forward. A delivery driver said he had brought portable burners and filming lights to my address under Tyler Dawson's name. A kitchen supply store confirmed that Tyler had submitted my KitchenAid mixer for a warranty replacement and claimed it was a business asset. I went to the storage room. The cream-colored mixer was gone. Marlene had told me it had been taken for servicing because it made an odd noise. I called the store. They said it had been exchanged for a new model 3 months earlier. Tyler had collected the replacement. I sat down on the storage room floor. Each new piece of evidence did more than make me angrier. It changed the shape of old memories. She had not helped me service the mixer. She had taken it. She had not reorganized the storage room while I was in Boston. She had cleared space for filming equipment. She had not carried leftovers to church. She had carried them to Tyler. Perhaps the most painful part of betrayal is not the moment you discover one lie. It is the moment when dozens of memories that once made you feel cared for become evidence that the other person had been calculating for a long time. The police did not arrest Marlene over a few trays of pastries. But my report was no longer about a few trays. Daniel helped me prepare a list of missing property: 14 glass food storage containers, 1 KitchenAid mixer, 2 Dutch ovens, 1 6-piece Wüsthof knife set, 1 food processor, 1 filming light, the camera I thought I had, lent for a job application, 3 handmade tablecloths, several ceramic platters and baking dishes. The identifiable value exceeded $6,000. Food and utility costs were harder to calculate, but the receipts pointed to thousands more. A detective named Rebecca Mills was assigned to the case. She was around 45, spoke plainly, and did not seem impressed by Tyler's follower count. We need to distinguish an employment dispute from theft, she said. Which objects did you ever authorize her to take? Which ones can you prove were removed? And which may simply be misplaced? I gave her the entire file. She watched the video of Marlene taking the museum food. This is clear. She read the messages in which Tyler told an editor to remove logos. This is useful too. Then she asked, "Do you have evidence that they sold food?" Priya showed her screenshots from Tyler's membership page, where he promoted advance orders for the meal boxes. They had not delivered anything yet, Priya said. But 19 people paid reservation deposits. Detective Mills raised an eyebrow. Did the money enter his account? We have receipts from buyers. Send them to me. 2 days later, Marlene contacted Daniel to arrange retrieval of her personal belongings. She had left a coat, 2 pairs of shoes, several cookbooks, and a box of photographs in the laundry room. Daniel scheduled the pickup for Friday afternoon under supervision. My first instinct was to leave the house. Then I remembered that it was my house. I should not have to hide. At 3 that afternoon, a security employee named Marcus arrived. He was not there to fight anyone. He stood in the foyer with a body camera and ensured that no one entered any area not included on the inventory list. Because Tyler had already pounded on my door, Detective Mills also arranged for a patrol officer to stop by. Marlene arrived at 3:10. Tyler drove her. He stepped out of the truck with his phone already recording. "We are filming for our own protection," he announced. Marcus replied, "That is fine. The common areas are also being recorded." Marlene did not look at me. She went directly to the laundry room and packed her belongings into 2 boxes. On the way out, she stopped beside the blue Dutch oven displayed on a shelf. "This is mine," I said. "No, I bought it at LaRue Kitchen Supply in March of last year. I used it nearly every day. Using something does not make you its owner." Tyler pushed his camera toward my face. "Do you see this? She is keeping the possessions of a poor working woman." Marcus stepped between us. "Maintain distance." Marlene lifted the pot. I did not grab it. "The receipt is in the police file," I said. "If you carry it out, the cameras will record that too." She tightened her grip on the handle. For a moment, I thought she would take it. Then she set it down so hard that the lid rattled. "You have everything," she said. "A large house, a career, decent parents. What else do you want?" "I want the things that belong to me to remain in my home." "You do not use everything. That is not your decision." Tyler scoffed. "My mother rescued this house from chaos. Before she came, you lived like a failure." I looked at him. "You never met me before your mother worked here." She told me enough. Marlene suddenly turned toward her son. "Tyler, stop." But he was live streaming. The viewer count was climbing quickly. "No, Mom. Today we tell the truth. You cooked for her, cleaned for her, cared for her when her wrist was broken. You deserved more than a few dollars in wages." I paid $32 an hour, partial dental coverage, mileage, and holiday bonuses. Tyler hesitated. Marlene said, "Money is not everything." "I agree. Trust matters too." She looked at me. For the first time in days, I saw a flicker of shame on her face. Tyler did not allow the silence to last. "She could buy 10 mixers. So what if my mother took one?" Marcus turned toward Tyler's phone. The live stream comments were reflected in the glass beside the door. Tyler had just said that in front of thousands of people. Marlene went pale. "Be quiet." "Why?" "We took things she used for work. Without them, the channel could not have grown." The room became completely still. Even Tyler seemed to realize what he had said. I asked slowly, "Are you admitting that the mixer and equipment in your videos belong to me?" He lowered the phone. "You are twisting my words. You are broadcasting your own words." Tyler ended the live stream. Marlene began to cry. Not the quiet crying that had once made me soften. She sat in a chair beside the door, covered her face, and shook. "I only wanted to help him," she said. I did not answer immediately. Part of me still remembered the woman who cut food into small pieces while my wrist was in a cast. Another part saw the woman who had treated the key to my home like a key to a warehouse. I wanted to help Tyler too, I said. I gave him a camera because you said he needed it for a job application. You weren't using it. You never asked. You would have said no. You did not know that. Marlene raised her head. I know people like you. You give things away when you receive gratitude. But when someone takes the share they deserve, you call them thieves. I looked at her. No one gets to decide what share they deserve from someone else's property. The patrol officer near the door had heard enough. He directed Marlene and Tyler to carry out only the boxes that had been inspected. Before leaving, Tyler turned back. This is not over. Detective Mills, who arrived near the end of the appointment, stood behind him. You are correct, she said. It is not over. Mr. Dawson, I need to speak with you about certain property and payments from customers. Tyler's face changed. Marlene grabbed her son's arm. I stood in my own foyer and watched them step aside with the detective. There was no cheering, no triumphant rush, only the cold relief of seeing a lie finally run out of places to hide. During the following weeks, I learned more about Tyler than I had ever wanted to know. He had not merely been living on food Marlene carried home. He was nearly $40,000 in debt from credit cards, filming equipment, and a pickup truck purchased to support his image. He rented an apartment beyond his means because he wanted viewers to believe he was successful. The channel had 80,000 followers, but its income was unstable. One video might earn several $1,000s, while the next 3 barely covered rent. The Granite Flame contract was his largest opportunity. If the campaign succeeded, the company would sponsor a 12-episode series and consider investing in the Mealbox line. Tyler needed to prove that he had a test kitchen, original recipes, and production capacity. He had none of those things. Marlene supplied the kitchen. Priya unknowingly supplied the menu. I supplied ingredients, equipment, electricity, and gas. Hannah supplied editing skill and was not fully paid. Tyler supplied his face and his voice. Marlene told the detective she had done everything because Tyler had gone through a difficult period after his father died. Her husband had suffered a heart attack 6 years earlier. Tyler was 26 at the time. After the funeral, he quit his restaurant job, moved in with his mother, and said he needed time to find direction. That time lasted 6 years. Marlene paid rent, car expenses, insurance, and many other bills. When her savings began to disappear, she started taking food from the families she worked for. I was not the first. One former household confirmed that they had suspected her of carrying away meat and pantry goods, but had not called the police because the value seemed small. Another former employer reported 3 sets of linens and a coffee machine missing. Marlene always had an explanation. The food was expiring. The family planned to throw it away. She had received verbal permission. No one wanted to make a serious accusation against a hard-working middle-aged woman. I understood that reluctance perfectly. Daniel said, "Small acts continue because each person assumes their case is isolated." Why did she keep doing it after she knew about the cameras? Because she crossed the boundary for so long without consequences, that in her mind, permission to use became a right to own. What about Tyler? He may genuinely believe his mother was treated unfairly. That does not remove his responsibility. I thought about what Marlene had said. People like you give things away when you receive gratitude. Perhaps she saw my kindness as a performance of power. Every gift reminded her that she stood in a lower position. To correct that feeling, she privately took whatever she believed she deserved. I could understand the mechanism. Understanding did not require acceptance. Granite Flame canceled the contract after reviewing the documents and interviewing Hannah. The company did not sue immediately, but demanded repayment of the $12,000 advance. The platform suspended monetization on Tyler's channel because of deceptive commercial content and the unlicensed sale of food products. All 19 Mealbox deposits were refunded. Tyler posted 3 more videos. The first said he was the victim of corporate collusion. The second showed him crying and asking viewers for donations. The third accused me of paying Hannah to lie. Hannah published screenshots showing that Tyler owed her $4,800. Support for him collapsed quickly. I stopped watching. My parents learned what had happened through someone in my mother's book club. Mom called. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. Your father wants to drive down immediately." "Absolutely not." In the background, I heard Dad say, "I only want to see whether that fellow would call me a greedy old man to my face." Mom told him to be quiet. I laughed for the first time in days. Then she said, "You do not have to pretend you are fine with me." I sat down at the kitchen table. I feel stupid. For trusting someone? For ignoring so many signs? Trusting a person who helped you when you were injured was not stupidity. But I let her into the house. Yes, and when you learned the truth, you closed the door. I looked around the kitchen. Without Marlene, it was messier. A coffee mug sat beside the sink. Mail covered part of the counter. The dish towels were not folded evenly. But the house belonged to me again. No one opened my refrigerator and decided how much I needed. No one evaluated whether my parents deserved a box of pastries. Mom asked, "Have you eaten dinner?" I looked at the sandwich I had bought and forgotten. "Not yet. Your father will make chowder. We'll bring it down. You don't need to, Natalie." I stopped. Allowing someone to care for you does not give them ownership of your life. The words tightened my throat. "All right," I said. "Come over." My parents arrived with a pot of clam chowder, a sourdough loaf, and an apple pie. Dad inspected every lock as though he were a security consultant. Mom opened the refrigerator and shook her head because I had almost no vegetables. We ate at the kitchen table. No one mentioned Marlene for the first half hour. Then Dad said, "I still don't understand why she objected to 12 cinnamon rolls." Mom answered, because in her mind, those rolls already belonged to Tyler. I looked at her. "I think so too. Dad served himself more chowder." That is the most dangerous thing about people who grant themselves the right to take. They do not believe they are taking. They believe someone else is withholding what should have been theirs. He had taught history for 35 years. Every event, in his mind, could expand into a principle about society. This time, he was right. I told them about the old videos, the mixer, and the sponsorship. Mom went still. "The cream-colored mixer? Yes. I paid half the cost as your birthday gift." "I know." Dad put down his spoon. You will do nothing. I was only going to say that we should let the police handle it." Mom looked at him. "You were going to use a different verb." "Possibly." We laughed. After dinner, Mom helped me reorganize a cabinet. She found 3 container lids without matching bases. "How many containers are missing?" 14, she sighed. She had to carry them out over time. "Yes." "And you did not notice?" "I thought they were in the dishwasher, the freezer, or had cracked." Mom put the lid down. "Natalie, a home is not an evidence warehouse. You cannot live by counting every spoon. Maybe I should have paid more attention. Attention is different from suspicion." I looked at her. She smoothed my hair the way she had when I was a child. Do not let someone who abused your trust steal your ability to trust anyone again. That evening, after my parents left, I stood in front of the stove for a long time. Marlene had left behind a handwritten recipe notebook. I opened it. Her writing leaned slightly to the right, neat and consistent. Chicken pot pie, maple glazed salmon, cinnamon rolls. On the last page was the chowder recipe I had praised more than any other. I almost threw the notebook into the trash. Then I stopped. The recipes were not guilty. The smell of cinnamon had not betrayed me. A bowl of hot soup did not belong exclusively to the person who had cooked it. I returned the notebook to the shelf, not because I wanted to keep Marlene in my home, because I wanted to remember that the months in which she cared for me had not been entirely false, even though they existed alongside deception. A person can be kind and greedy. A mother can love her son and harm others for him. Someone can help another person recover, then use that intimacy to take what does not belong to her. Truth is rarely tidy. Boundaries can be. 3 months later, the civil dispute entered mediation. The local prosecutor was still reviewing possible charges related to property and consumer fraud. Neither Marlene nor Tyler had been convicted of anything. Daniel advised me to separate civil compensation from the criminal process. We requested the return or replacement value of property, food expenses that could be documented, losses connected to the museum order, and a portion of my legal fees. Not every dollar of the $9,000 grocery discrepancy could be proven. I accepted that. I did not want to turn every lemon and every pound of flour into a separate battle. The mediation took place in an office overlooking the Fore River. Marlene arrived with a legal aid attorney. She looked thinner, her hair was no longer evenly colored, and gray roots showed around her part. Tyler arrived 15 minutes late, wearing a baseball cap pulled low. It was the first time all three of us had sat in the same room since the property pickup. The mediator explained that no one would be forced to admit criminal guilt. The purpose was to resolve property and financial claims. The inventory was read aloud. The mixer had been recovered by police from Tyler's apartment. 2 Dutch ovens were found in a storage unit. The knife set had been sold online and could not be recovered. Most of the glass containers, ceramic dishes, and handmade linens were gone. Tyler sat with his arms folded. "This is exaggerated," he said. "A lot of those things were gifts." "From whom?" Daniel asked. "My mother said Natalie gave them to us." Marlene looked down at the table. The mediator asked her, "Ms. Dawson, did Miss Mercer give Tyler the mixer?" She remained silent. Tyler turned toward her. "Mom?" Marlene spoke very quietly. "No." "What about the Dutch ovens?" "No." "The knives?" She closed her eyes. "No." Tyler struck the table with his palm. "My lawyer told you that you didn't have to say that." Marlene's attorney immediately requested a break. When we returned, Tyler no longer sat beside his mother. He had moved to the chair at the far end of the table. The mediator asked Marlene why she had taken the items. "At first, it was only leftover food," she said. "And later, Tyler needed content. He said that if the channel grew, he would repay everything. Did you believe him?" "Yes." Tyler gave a bitter laugh. "She is acting as if I forced her." Marlene turned toward him. "I did not say you forced me. You are blaming me. You said the kitchen would only be used a few times, and you agreed. You said Natalie did not care. She didn't care until she decided to destroy my contract. I watched them. For months, they had stood together against me. Now that consequences had arrived, the line between them was beginning to crack." The mediator questioned Tyler about the 19 mealbox deposits. He called them voluntary contributions. The receipts clearly said product deposit. He said Hannah had manipulated the messages. Hannah had produced the original files. He said Granite Flame knew the kitchen was not his. The company had an email in which he claimed the studio was a business asset under his exclusive control. Every lie collided with a document. Finally, Daniel presented an offer. Marlene and Tyler would return all remaining property. They would pay an agreed amount over 3 years. They would remove content containing my address, private images, or specific unsupported claims. They would publish a correction stating that the Livestream food belonged to Harbor Light Museum and Juniper and Rye. They would not contact me directly. If they violated the agreement, the settlement would become void and the lawsuit would continue. Tyler refused. "I will not destroy my own reputation," Daniel replied. "Your reputation is your problem. This is about correcting false statements. I have the right to tell my side. You may express opinions. You may not say Ms. Mercer paid minimum wage when payroll records prove otherwise, or say the food belonged to you when batch records prove that it did not." Tyler stood. "Then I'll see you in court." He left the room. Marlene remained seated. Her attorney spoke quietly with her for several minutes. Then Marlene looked at me. "May I speak to her alone?" Daniel shook his head. Not without counsel. Here then. Everyone can listen. I nodded. Marlene clasped her hands. I know you think I am not sorry. I said nothing. I am sorry. Because you were caught? Her eyes filled. Both. At least it was the first honest answer she had given me. She continued. I thought you had too much. I told myself you would never notice. When you did not notice, I decided that proved I was right. I listened without interrupting. Then Tyler needed more expensive dishes, better cameras, a nicer kitchen. Every time I wanted to stop, he said it would be only one more video, only until the sponsorship. Tyler was no longer in the room to hear her. Marlene looked toward the door. I do not know when helping my son became doing everything for him. I thought of the 6 extra servings, then the 48 cinnamon rolls. Maybe when you started taking from other people so he would not have to pay for his own choices. She lowered her head. I am sorry I spoke about you not having children. My throat tightened. You knew what happened to me. I knew. And you still said it. At that moment I wanted to hurt you. You succeeded. Marlene nodded, and tears fell onto her hands. I did not forgive her on command. Forgiveness is not a sentence used to make a room less uncomfortable. I only said, I do not want your life destroyed, but I cannot pretend this did not happen. She accepted the portion of the settlement assigned to her. Tyler did not sign. The mediation ended without a complete victory, but for the first time, Marlene stopped saying she had merely carried away leftovers. She used the correct verb, took. Sometimes truth begins with a very short word. Tyler chose to proceed to civil trial. That decision extended the dispute by 6 months and cost him far more than the original settlement would have. During discovery, his attorney had to produce emails, contracts, filming schedules, and financial records connected to Tyler's table. Those documents showed that Tyler had always known the kitchen was not his. In one email to Granite Flame, he wrote, We have exclusive access to a high-end residential kitchen in Portland. The property owner is not involved in the business and does not need attribution. In messages to Marlene, he wrote, Remember to film while she is in Boston. Do not let the NM logo appear. Bring the copper tray too. It looks more expensive. Buy more vanilla on her card. The cheap kind makes the video look bad. Another message stopped me cold. If Natalie asks questions, cry. Her biggest fear is making someone feel looked down on. Tyler understood me through the things Marlene had told him. He knew I hated conflict. He knew I tended to question whether I was being too harsh. He knew that an older woman's tears would make me step backward. The manipulation had not been accidental. It had been a strategy. When Daniel showed me the messages, I was no longer as sad as I had been before. I was clear. Clarity has a strange kind of power. It does not erase pain, but it prevents pain from disguising itself as self-doubt. At trial, Tyler tried to present himself as a young creator crushed by a wealthy client. He was 32. The judge asked, Do you have a contract authorizing use of the kitchen? Not in writing. Any text message granting permission? No. Any evidence that Ms. Mercer gave you the equipment? No. Then on what basis did you believe you owned or were entitled to use it? Tyler looked toward Marlene in the gallery. My mother said so. The judge asked, Did Miss Dawson own the house? No. Then what authority did her permission carry? Tyler had no answer. The judgment required him to pay the value of missing property, costs connected to the museum order, part of my attorney's fees, and to remove specific false statements. He did not go to prison because of the civil judgment. In the criminal matter, he accepted a reduced plea involving unlawful possession of property and deceptive customer payments. In exchange, he refunded buyers, completed community service, and served probation. Marlene accepted responsibility for theft-related conduct and received supervised probation, given her age, prior record, cooperation, and return of property. Some people online said the punishment was too light. Others said it was too severe. I did not argue with either side. Tyler lost the Granite Flame contract. His channel was restricted from monetization for almost a year, and he sold his truck to pay debts. But his life did not end. Marlene found part-time work at a laundry after completing court-ordered financial and family counseling. I knew because her settlement payments arrived every month. They were not large, but they arrived regularly. The first payment came with an envelope. Daniel asked whether I wanted him to open it. I opened it myself. Inside was a handwritten note. Natalie, I spent too many years saving Tyler from consequences. In the end, I made other people pay for him. I do not expect forgiveness. I only want to return what I can, even if it takes a long time. Marlene. I folded the paper. There was no elaborate apology, no defense based on motherhood, only an acknowledgement. I placed it in a drawer with the settlement papers. Not because I wanted to preserve a relationship, because some wounds begin to heal only when the person who caused them stops arguing that they do not exist. After the case, Priya asked me to help redesign the back of her bakery. Juniper and Rye occupied an old brick building near Munjoy Hill. The bakery counter filled the front. A small storage room at the back opened toward the alley. Priya wanted to turn it into a licensed test kitchen and filming room for online classes. Are you sure you still want cameras in a kitchen? I asked. Priya laughed. The cameras did nothing wrong. We worked through the spring. I designed warm lighting, oak shelves, gray stone counters, and a background wall that could be changed for different classes. Every piece of equipment entered an inventory. Ingredients used for commercial content were separated from retail stock. Employees signed clear procedures, not because Priya suspected them, because good boundaries prevent decent people from having to guess. When the studio was finished, Priya held an opening live stream. She called the program Real Kitchen, Real Stories. The first episode demonstrated the Harbor Light lobster hand pie. This recipe once appeared online under very strange circumstances, Priya told the camera. Today we are making it properly, in a licensed kitchen, using a recipe credited to the person who created it. She did not mention Tyler by name. I stood behind the camera, adjusting the lights. Viewers asked what the lighthouse stamp under the crust meant. Priya held up a pie. It reminds us that origin matters. Who made the food, where the ingredients came from, and who was paid for the work. More than 10,000 people watched. Granite Flame did not sponsor the show. A local fishing cooperative and a wild blueberry farm sponsored the ingredients. After the live stream, we sold the boxes for $48. Part of the proceeds went to the Portland Food Bank. No one had to eat 36 pastries. No one shouted into a camera. No one pretended the kitchen belonged to them. Every box named the people who made it. I did not think of it as revenge. It was simply the best way to reclaim something that had been stained by lies. A creative space. Harbor Light Museum hired Priya for 3 more events. I received 2 additional design contracts from people who had watched the opening. Life continued in the less dramatic way that social media videos rarely promise. Bills still arrived. The roof still needed repairs. Dad still called to ask whether I had changed the furnace filter. Mom still brought too many apples whenever she visited. But laughter slowly returned to my kitchen. One June afternoon, an envelope arrived without a return address. Inside was the old brass key to my back door. I had changed the locks months earlier. The key no longer worked. A note accompanied it. I found this in a drawer. I should have returned it the day you ended my employment. M. I set the key on the table. It was small and ordinary, no different from millions of other keys, but for almost a year, it had allowed Marlene into my home. At first, because I needed help. Then, because I trusted her. Eventually, in her mind, it became evidence that some part of the house belonged to her too. I picked it up and felt the cold metal teeth against my palm. My parents visited that weekend. Mom brought flour and asked whether she could use my kitchen to make cinnamon rolls for her book club. I laughed. How many? 48. From the living room, Dad called. I request that 12 be reserved for me. Mom shook her head. We baked together. Flour covered the counter. Dad rolled the dough too thin. Mom accused him of using too much cinnamon. I burned the first batch of caramel. The kitchen was not perfect, but no camera needed to warn me about the people standing inside it. When the rolls were done, Mom packed 12 into a box. She looked at me and tried to keep a serious expression. Do I have permission to remove these from the premises? I handed her a paper napkin. Submit your request in writing. Dad laughed until he coughed. I packed 6 more for the neighbors, 4 for Priya, and kept 2 for breakfast. No one argued over who deserved what. No one treated the remaining rolls as a benefit being stolen from them. That evening, after my parents left, I placed the old key in a small wooden box. I had considered throwing it into the ocean. Then I realized there was no need. A key loses its power when the lock changes. It does not need to be destroyed in order to stop opening a door. Perhaps people and memories work the same way. Some memories do not need to be erased. They only need to lose the authority to decide who may enter your life. Nearly a year after the live stream, I unexpectedly saw Tyler at the farmer's market. He stood behind a small table selling bottled barbecue sauce. The sign read Dawson Smoke and Maple. There were no filming lights and no screen displaying a viewer count. Tyler looked thinner. His hair was shorter, and he wore a black apron. I intended to walk past. He saw me. We both stopped for several seconds. "Hi," he said. "Hi." I waited for an accusation. None came. Tyler looked down at the bottles. "I make it myself in a licensed community kitchen." "That is good. I have to record the ingredient sources and batch numbers. I know the process. It is a nuisance, but it is clear." He nodded. A customer approached and asked which sauce was hottest. Tyler offered a sample and explained the ingredients. He was good at it. After the customer left, he said, "My mother told me she sent the key back. I received it. She works at the laundry. On weekends, she helps at a charitable kitchen. I heard." Tyler looked at me. "I still think you could have handled it privately." "I asked your mother several times before anything became public." "No, I mean after the live stream. I did not post the clip. Viewers did. But you released documents. Because you said I set you up and paid minimum wage." He tightened a cap on one of the bottles. I panicked. Panic does not make a false statement true. I know. It was the closest thing to an apology Tyler could offer at that moment. I did not need more. He pointed toward the sauce. "Do you want to try it?" I read the label. There was a community kitchen address, an ingredient list, an allergy warning, his business name. Nothing belonged to me. "All right." Tyler handed me a tasting stick. The sauce was smoky, mapley, and mildly hot. It was good. "It needs a little more acid," I said. He laughed. "Mom says the same thing." I bought 1 bottle, not to prove I had forgiven him. Not out of pity. I bought it because the product had been made properly, and I wanted to pay for what I took. Tyler accepted the $10 bill and handed me a receipt. A small, clean transaction. As I turned away, he called, "Natalie." I looked back. "Thank you for not telling the customer who I am." I said, "You are showing them who you are now. That part is up to you." I left the market with the sauce in my bag. At the end of the street, a church bell rang 12 times. I did not know whether Tyler had changed completely. People rarely become an entirely new version of themselves after one crisis. Perhaps he still blamed me on difficult days. Perhaps he would search for another shortcut. Perhaps he had truly learned to stand on his own feet. It was no longer my concern. The difference was that he was no longer using my key, my money, or his mother's misplaced devotion to build an image. He stood behind his own table. That was where he should have started years earlier. The following autumn, Harbor Light Museum held an event marking the first anniversary of A Light Through the Fog. Priya handled the food. I handled the exhibition space. My parents attended as guests. At the end of the evening, 6 meal boxes remained. Priya placed them on a temporary counter behind the event hall. 6 boxes. For a moment, I was back on that October evening when I had first seen 6 extra portions in a house occupied by one person. Priya noticed me staring. What is it? Nothing. You are making your overthinking face. I picked up one box. Who are these for? 3 for the overnight staff, 2 for the cleanup crew, and 1 for Mr. Ellis, because he will forget to eat dinner. Did you ask them? Yes. Are they labeled? Priya pointed at the lids. Every box had a name. Liam. Sophia, Ben, Rosa, Caleb, Ellis. I smiled. Perfect. Priya studied my face and then understood. Different, isn't it? Very different. Not because of the quantity, not because someone would carry food out of the room, because everyone knew whom it belonged to, whom it had been prepared for, and who had agreed. Boundaries do not make generosity smaller. They make generosity reach the right person. Dad appeared holding 2 pieces of blueberry buckle. May I take these? Priya said. Mr. Mercer, you have already eaten 3. That was not an answer. I handed him a napkin. Yes. But Mom is in charge of your blood sugar. He winked. I like this place better than your old house. This is a museum. I mean the atmosphere. Mom walked over and adjusted his collar. What atmosphere? No one counts how many pastries I eat. Mom said, I am counting. We laughed. Outside the windows, thin fog covered Portland Harbor. Lights from the boats stretched across the dark water. I looked at the 6 boxes one last time. Once, they had been the first sign that someone was turning my generosity into a private supply chain. Now they were simply dinner for 6 people working late. The same image, a completely different meaning. I had once believed that the hardest part of being exploited was recovering what had been lost. Money, equipment, reputation, a sense of safety. It turned out that the hardest part was learning to look at a container of food without wondering who was deceiving me. That night, I helped Priya clear the counter, lock the storage room, and check the inventory. Not from fear, because that was how honest work was finished. Before I left, Mr. Ellis handed me the final box. I cannot finish it, he said. Would you take it home? I looked at his name on the lid. Are you sure? Completely. Then I accept. I carried the box home. I placed it in the refrigerator. The next morning, I warmed a cheddar biscuit, poured coffee, and sat by the window while maple leaves drifted across the street. No lock clicked behind me. No black insulated bag waited by the door. No Livestream was running in another apartment. There was only my house, my breakfast, and a new day beginning. I bit into the biscuit. It still smelled of butter, and for the first time in a very long while, I did not wonder who had taken the rest.